A Brooklyn mother is mourning her daughter, whom she believes was killed for simply asking people to stop setting off illegal fireworks. It happened in an area plagued by gun violence that only seems to be getting worse. CBS 2's Jenna DeAngelis has more.
This story transports us to the notorious pink houses of East New York, where two warring factions have been terrorizing the community for decades. Shatavia Walls, who was allegedly killed by 9D gang members in 2020, was another victim of these ruthless gangs who had a complex history. Caught between the Macballer Brims and 9D gang with their affiliates, Shatavia had already experienced 2 gunshot wounds to her thigh and faced drug charges. The unforgiving streets of East New York had taken an extreme toll on her until she decided to testify against them. The court convicted her husband Slay, a key member of the Macballer Brims, for trafficking drugs and weapons. Boss, from the Macballer side, had sold crack cocaine and heroin along Webster Avenue. "She wasn't a red, and that bastard should never have killed her," said an elder relative. "If any motherfucker ever shoots you, go testify against them." However, Shatavia's death was a tragic reminder of the hardships of living in Brooklyn's housing authority complex. This story is one we'll never forget. Shatavia walked through the minefield that was her home. Gangs with allegiances as strong as family bloodlines waged battles, bullets tearing through flesh like tissue paper. 2 shots to her thigh and a drug charge were the catalysts for her cooperation with the feds, prompting a decision that cost her life. Walls grew up in pink houses, Building 10, near the 9D gang. She learned too late that Macballer Brims had infiltrated Buildings 7 and 8 on Autumn Avenue, starting a decade-long gang war. Slay, a Macballers leader, was her spouse, and his criminal life entangled her too. Allegations stated he received his drugs from Boss, another Macballer who sold crack and heroin on Webster Avenue in the Bronx. Any dreams of freedom Shatavia, this union snuffed, may have cherished out. Shatavia Walls' death resulted in charges being brought against those involved, highlighting divisions amongst the pink houses complex. Rab was supplying many of the Macballers, like Broadway, with illegal drugs. Their drug empire extended to Brooklyn and the Bronx and even Maine, where they were pushing heroin. The court allowed wiretaps on phones used by several people involved in the Macballer situation, confirmed Stunner's position as Dawn, a role of leadership over the whole town. In late December 2017, Slay was appointed to oversee operations in Brooklyn. Through intercepted conversations amongst members of the gang, accounts of guns, violence, and doing whatever necessary to protect their turf arose. For instance, in November 2017, during a series of calls, Slay issued a threat to an individual using a firearm from the pink houses. Stunner then asked Shatavia Walls to bring him a hammer downstairs, and he bragged about how close he was to being jailed for having fired his gun. A separate call between Stunner and Broadway discussed ammunition for Broadway's gun, because he had to take care of something, meaning something violent. The Macballers' resolve to protect their turf was evident, as Broadway boasted about obtaining bullets from Stunner's gun. Roach, a Macballer Brim because of his street notoriety, was the recipient of illicit substances from Boss. Though he had priors for drug offenses since the start of the 2000s, and even once being convicted of second-degree attempted murder in 2011, for which he served 6 years. On June 18, 2023, he was at 1400 Webster Avenue in the Bronx, an area known as Mac Motherland Butler Houses. Surveillance cameras caught Roach with a firearm on the same street corner that night. As he roamed away from Blink Fitness Gym, 4 shots were fired in succession. People running away in fear created a chaotic scene in the background. Roach searched for bullet fragments or casings. When New York PD officers arrived, they found a 38-year-old male had been shot in his left ankle. The criminal? Roach. The police retrieved a bullet fragment from the victim's ankle and a shell casing from the sidewalk next to Blink Fitness. This discovery would force Slay Walls, husband of Shatavia, into indictments with the Macballers in 2018. Investigations unveiled Shatavia was an enigmatic figure, operating as both a drug dealer and a nurturing mother who took care of her aunt, handled multiple jobs, and consorted with authorities when necessary. Unbeknownst to her, such behavior could generate severe repercussions amongst her enemies. The 9D Gang, a criminal faction renowned as the Wise Gang and very crispy gangsters. Allegiance with other gangs such as the Shoes, Apes or Stonebloods, twirlers, and hats gave them further notoriety through rap videos and social media postings led by Kev G, their little big homie. Shaquem was a part of the notorious Loopy gang, whose affiliations ran deep with the 9D gang. They shot Shaquem twice in both legs in 2014, and he has had a long list of charges since then. Shaquem has 6 criminal convictions behind him, 4 that occurred before he even hit 18 years old. Shaquem grew up in an abusive household with an alcoholic mother and had to fend for himself in the projects. He survived by any means necessary. Lerone ran a major drug distribution network in the Pink Houses. Keene rolled on the street and reported to Lerone. All that changed on October 5, 2017, outside the Pink Houses on Linden Boulevard. Shaquem approached Shatavia with a look of disdain on his face. His crew had beef, and he wanted her gone. But then things went south, fast. Her refusal was sufficient for him. He rode off, returning to the scene with a gun in hand. The ambiguity of Shatavia's knowledge didn't deter her from standing her ground. With bold fury, she punched him square in the face before tackling him down. Shaquem hopped back up and shot her twice in the left leg at close range. The investigators found a .40 caliber cartridge casing at the scene. Despite this dire situation, Shatavia would survive, though wounds to both body and pride remained raw. The source of animosity between rival crews was Shatavia's business with Slay the Mac Baller from the other side. However, Walls kept this information hidden from the detectives until she was charged in a drug case along with her husband. She claimed she wanted to get everything out in the open, so she cooperated with the feds despite others labeling her as a snitch. In court, Walls stated, "I stand up for myself." She faced intimidating witness testimony, according to prosecutors. News flyers posted on all 22 buildings in Pink Houses show that Shatavia's reputation as a rat is still alive. As Walls prepared to face trial in the Federal Court of Brooklyn, the flyers highlighted a police report from a 2011 assault case with Walls as a person interviewed in connection to the crime. Seizing one of those flyers, Walls reported to the police, which resulted in one of her adversaries being charged with witness tampering. The court sentenced Keem to 9 years in prison for possessing illegal weapons. The residents of Pink Houses confirmed Shatavia's status as a snitch. However, her past seemed to follow her everywhere, even on July 4th, 2020, when she got into a confrontation with Malik Miller, known around the hood as Leak, and White Boy, members of the notorious 9D gang. The night started with celebration, but soon turned sour. Walls found herself face-to-face with Miller and his crew at the playground where the kids were playing. He denounced her for speaking out against Akeem's trial. And then, in an instant, the sound of gunshots pierced the night air. Walls made her retreat. However, Wildchild and Joe Santana from the 9D gang lurked outside in wait. Walls sped away but couldn't evade their vengeance.
Candles sit in the courtyard of East New York's Pink Houses, where 33-year-old Shatavia Walls was shot on July 7th, but sadly died 10 days later. On a nearby bench Monday, we met her mother, reflecting and mourning. She asked we hide her identity as her daughter's killer is still out there.
My daughter was a helping person, always wanted to help everybody.
Explaining that's exactly what her daughter was doing here earlier this month.
Asking somebody to stop lighting the fireworks because the kids was in the park. They was asked politely.
She says days later, as Walls and a friend were leaving the Linden Boulevard building after a visit, they were gunned down. According to police sources, it's believed Walls was the intended target. A 30-year-old man was also shot but survived.
And it happened out here, the people from out here.
Police sources say they're not ruling out the possibility this was gang-related, pointing out there's a gang issue at this housing complex.
Baby Joe Santana had his trial set for the August of 2021. The feds had charged him with multiple counts of murder under the Federal Violent Crimes in Aid of Racketeering Act. And if found guilty, he could spend the next 2 decades behind bars. Santana was known to hail from Building 10 of the Pink Houses, the home of the 9D gang. But among his most controversial relationships was that of Shatavia Walls' husband, Kevin St. Hill, aka Kev G, the leader of Mac Baller Brim's gang located in Buildings 7 and 8 in the same complex. No stranger to Queens, Santana had family members living in the Pink Houses also, popping round often to hang out but getting caught up in violence. It was during one such visit that he argued with Shaquem Boykins of the Loopy Gang, firing shots towards his legs according to his own testimony in court. The feds indicted both Santana and her husband on drug trafficking charges in 2018, which prompted Walls to cooperate with them, telling them what she knew before it was too late. Her bravery in snatching Miller's identification card when a confrontation between herself and infamous 9D gang members Malik Miller and Cheyenne Fernandez erupted became key evidence used against Miller in court. Miller was determined to get his revenge, and on July 7, 2020, Santana and Green carried out his plan. The investigation into her killing led detectives nowhere until alternative leads gave them insight into Miller, Wint, Fernandez, Green, and Bay, all of whom they somehow connected to the death of Walls. After a lengthy pursuit, Miller was apprehended and interrogated for his part in the execution. He denied any involvement but would not provide any information about those involved or their whereabouts. As justice crept closer to revealing itself, one thing was certain: the dark streets wouldn't be giving up its victims. His face hardened with vengeance upon learning that these 5 men were responsible for the heinous act of violence. Justice will be served for the innocent life taken too soon. Santana, Green, and Bay had all been part of Miller's 9D gang, and after much scrutiny from law enforcement, it became apparent that Miller had given Walls orders to be executed for snitching on her husband regarding drug trafficking charges. Green and Santana were already facing their destinies, with others taking plea bargains on minor charges linked to the assassination. Miller had become notorious as the head of 9D criminal organization, scoping out targets beyond pink houses. Law enforcement persevered in the quest of justice, prodding deeper into 9D's affairs and revealing what they found to the neighborhood. Anxiety was etched onto people's faces while they waited to see it return order to their area and quell this uproar. The mission to enforce justice intensified as police combed through evidence, putting them on the right track, leading them from one crime scene to another, discovering bullet-riddled bodies and caches of drugs and money tucked away in forgotten buildings. The detectives conducted a thorough investigation, questioning anyone who could know something about 9D's activities. Most of the answers were negative and furthered suspicion over the 9D gang's illegitimate doings. This sent the law running in multiple directions outside pink houses without any solid proof until an informant stepped forward to the investigators claiming he had knowledge connecting 9D with other gangs back home. They were all shocked, scared, but relieved at having confirmation of whom had to be toppled from power to restore tranquility. Be blessed, be loved, and stay safe, y'all. This is a story of Avonda Dowling, an unheralded black female gangster from Overtown, Miami. In the era of segregation and hardship, she rose to power and took over control of the streets. But as they always say, all empires come crumbling down. She didn't bow to pressure from rivals and authorities alike when they threatened her throne. But in the end, justice triumphed, and they jailed her for 20 years. The maximum punishment for her crimes. This is a story of a boss bitch who dared to challenge the societal norms of her times. Decades of neglect had left thousands of girls without hope for a better future. For Avonda, that was about to change. Miami became the entry port into America for bundles of cocaine, a product which provided an opportunity to make money, and the Noriegas and Pablo Escobars of the world were profiting in this market of users and abusers. But this powder came at a great cost, one which Avonda was all too familiar with. Since graduating from Carroll City High School, they had enticed Avonda into a dark and treacherous criminal world. Under the tutelage of a few Miami gangsters, She learned the ropes of trafficking bundles and even earned respect among the notorious hitmen and drug dealers of Overtown. She found her criminal apprenticeship invaluable after her boss was arrested and charged with various offenses. With him locked away, Avanda's ruthless reign began. She used her father's longshoreman union connection to get an advantage at the port of Miami and soon became a powerful mover and shaker in the underworld. Avanda's family had a deep connection to the bustling waterfront of Jacksonville. Both her husband and 3 sons sought opportunity and stability at the port. But Gervonta Jackson didn't view it as simply a job. Her youngest son would become an NFL star with the Philadelphia Eagles. However, before his success, Avanda's husband became entangled in a criminal underworld that dragged her towards a fate she could not escape from. Her connections allowed her to build a drug empire running across states in the southeastern United States. She instilled fear in all, including those trying to take over her territory, as she became one of the most powerful gang lords in the late 1980s. Avanda had money, power, and control. Robert was Avanda's go-to problem solver. Marlo had crossed her and had to be dealt with, so Robert stepped in. He took care of business and didn't leave a trace. Now, as the 80s descended upon Miami, an epidemic plagued the streets. Delroy Uzi Edwards led this new wave of Jamaican gangs dabbling in this unlawful activity. Wanda rose from humble beginnings to becoming the plug for what would become known as candy on the corner. She learned how to cook it up, and before she knew it, they lined her pockets with money. Apartment complexes she owned were now dedicated to turning powder into rocks. The streets of Miami were abuzz with the hustler's spirit. After Avanda arrived on the scene, other street gangs flocked to follow her example and earn their own piece of the pie. The competitors fought tooth and nail to win. Avanda, however, remained undefeated. With law enforcement in her pocket and charitable donations to those in need, she had more than proved herself to the people of Overtown. While fear and chaos spread across the city, they spoke well of her generosity during holidays like Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Little did they know the devastation their actions would cause. Avanda's gang of soldiers had sparked a horrific war, terrorizing the people of Miami with no mercy. The crossfire caused the loss of innocent lives and injuries to countless others. Children as young as 18 months, teenagers, adults, and elderly all witnessed the devastating effects of this senseless violence. The gangs had access to military-grade weapons such as grenades, making them almost impossible for local law enforcement to contain. President Clinton enacted a bill in 1994 prohibiting such weapons, yet it proved futile as it was already too late. So, in 1997, they formed a task force between federal and local law enforcement to ensure the safety of the people in Miami. The feds re-examined every old case involving firearms in order to bring justice to those responsible. The federal courts with mandatory minimums took up the cases dropped by the state courts. Crimebusters pursued Avanda and her hitmen and hustlers of the Booby Boys gang. One by one, they caught the members of her syndicate up, including Kenneth Booby Williams himself. The decisive action of the busters resulted in securing the once fearsome felons with hefty 10-year sentences, leading to an 80% decrease in violent crimes like drive-bys. Avanda's old crew retreated against her and provided information on the corpses left in the aftermath of her all-out war with the Booby Boys before she was rounded up and brought to trial in 1998. Her lieutenants testified she had ordered these hits, a damning indictment. They claimed Avanda paid them to execute her wrath. A mountain of evidence piled up against Fonda, with over 50 witnesses ready to testify against him. The prosecutors wanted charges that would have made Avanda eligible for the death penalty. Yet, in a shocking twist of fate, Judge Seitz, the daughter of a retired 3-star general, imposed the maximum sentence, sending 40-year-old Avanda Dowling to prison for 20 years. Her story was a solemn reminder of the dangers of gang life.
Fonda's the only female in the crew that a lot of people thought they were going to walk over Fonda because she was a female. which didn't happen. Vonda went to war just as well as them dudes that went, you know. I mean, Vonda was a true gangster. You know, don't let the fact that she was a female fool you, because
I knew Vonda from Overtown, and to me, Vonda found her a space that she could do her thing. She had her little girls. Vonda was, Vonda to me was just like a person, found them a spot that they can exist in and do their thing. You know, how big she got or what she became, I really didn't know because I ended up in the federal prison system, so hey, it is what it is.
I remember Vonda when she was a little girl. In fact, she grew up in the neighborhood that I grew up in. I remember she was running around with two of my daughters. I had two daughters about the same age that she was, and I used to watch them play in the yard, and she was always somewhat of a little leader.
Outgoing, you know what I'm saying, fun-loving, easy to get along with. She get along with anybody. And just as easy as she is to get along with, she'll set you straight in a minute.
I don't know if you saw this movie, what it was, New Jack City, and they had the chick with the gun that was Rockabye Baby, and then Vonda had chicks like that with her, just like that. But you know, in the movie, I mean, it was just make believe in the movie, but she had real live. She had hooked it down gangster women with her that would do that.
The cheerleaders need a uniform. They could go to Vonda. Vonda give them a couple of $100. Buy the cheerleaders uniforms when they ain't had. The kids needed shoes to go to school. You could go to Vonda and get that from them. Vonda was a real good woman.
She'll rent a van and take the kids to Disney World, order pizza. She'll have a DJ, especially if they had something like a graduation.
Wow, what she used to do, like on an Easter. She used to get a lot of the girls to dress up like bunnies, and she'd dress up like an Easter bunny too, and they had the eggs and the costumes, yeah, for the kids. They even had things for the grown-ups too. It just, everybody just participated in it. But she was the one did all the, you know, the buying and the giving, you know. The kids were, oh man, they couldn't wait for Easter to come or either Christmas to come, because they know Vonda was gonna do something.
Vonda just was put in a bad situation. She's a real good friend of mine. You know what I'm saying? She always threw good parties, never was a troublemaker. They just put her name in a lot of circumstances.
From what I hear, it was Rah-Rah that kind of got Vonda screwed up, because he lied saying that she paid him to go kill this girl. He killed some girl. He killed that girl because the girl took some stuff out of his car, stole some stuff out of his car. And then when he found out Vonda and the girl had some kind of beef or something, then he went down there. But I think he deserved everything he got.
McBride was, to me, now he was a good dude. You know, they killed him over there. This dude named Rah-Rah. They say Rah-Rah killed him at the behest of somebody else.
That ain't the first time. I remember that time he was laying on the roof. He's supposed to shot McBride or somebody in that hole. He was up there. I remember he was up there. And then the dude, Papa Star, he killed Papa Star. Papa Star stayed in the building behind that. He was on the roof that time when he shot that boy, Papa Star.
We said, oh God, they done got Vonda. And the way they portrayed her in the newspaper, it was like they were talking about another person. You know, I'm thinking of Vonda and what she was doing for the community and the kids, not all that, like killing and the guns and all that and contracts. Nah, that wasn't Vonda. No, there had to be another Vonda. That wasn't a Vonda Jackson. No.
She got 20 years, but she got 20 years for 2 grams of cocaine. They convicted her for 2 grams of cocaine. They didn't convict her for none of the murders. They didn't convict her for none of the gang-related stuff. They convicted her for 2 grams of cocaine.
And they lied on that girl. That girl ain't with no killer. They ain't never killed nobody.